Hey guys, this is Tom Sullivan here with Real Talk Investing, and today I want to take you through the BRRRR method. So I've gotten a lot of questions recently with my Instagram post that showed you how I went through the BRRRR method and how I was able to cash out and make more money than what I actually put into the process, making over $12,000 and now getting an income to come in annually of over $10,000. So with that process, I want to be able to show you the breakdown of how it goes step by step so that you can do it in your own market, wherever you are, and then therefore start to work on building your empire, building your setup of real estate, and be able to drive down that road to success. So let's just get started now, and I'll show you how that process works. So to give you some details about the BRRRR method. So BRRRR itself, first step, is buy. So you're going to have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what is that right property to buy. Now you may ask yourself that you don't know, how do I find out what that property is? It's simply through research. You're going to have to look for probably 100 properties before you're going to be able to find the right property to get. So the key here is to find a property at the right price. Now you may be asking yourself, what is that right price? And I will take you through some steps that you can help narrow down where you should be looking for. But the key is to figure out what are houses going for in the market that you are looking at, and what is the rental income that you can get in that market. And once you have those numbers figured out, you can then figure out what can you offer on that property to ensure that you're going to make a positive income and get some money out of the entire BRRRR method. Step 2 is rehab. Now this step is the key to this process. You have to make sure that you know exactly how much money needs to be spent on these projects, and the best way to figure that out is to work with multiple contractors. So have multiple contractors come out and see the property before you put in an offer, and ask them how much do you think it's going to cost to do the repairs. Now in most of these methods, don't spend too much time on the small details of the property. The big areas, which will increase the appraised value, which is key, that's where you get all your money from, is the appraised value, is to make sure that the kitchen is updated, the bathrooms are updated, and the outside appearance of the property is up to the level of the neighborhood. So that way you're shown as a spotlight in the neighborhood instead of something that's pulling down the overall value of the neighborhood. And this in turn will help get you that higher appraised number. So once again, the focus here is to make sure that you're finding out what are the key elements of this house that need to be rehabbed. Step 3 of the BRRRR method is rent. And this is probably my favorite step of this process just because it provides you with cash flow each and every month. So if you do this process right, and how I did it with a 2-family property, you're able to make it where you flip the property, get money out of it, so you finish off positive from that aspect, but you can also make it so that you cash flow each and every month on top of that. So not only do you make money to start off, but now you're continuously making money every single month because you were able to rent out the property. So the key here for the renting is finding out what rents go for in your area. So figure out what those rents are in that area, and from there you can have a good ballpark estimate of where your property will fall in. What my recommendation would be is find out that ballpark, so what's the low end, what's the high end, and then play a little bit on the safer side. So for instance, if the houses in your area go from $700 to $1,500 in rent, probably estimate around that $1,000 point. And obviously check your area to see specifically where you should go, but that gives you a good ballpark estimate. Just so if you can get more, great, but oftentimes if you're rehabbing a house and making it brand new on the inside in a lot of areas, you're going to get at least middle of the pack, if not higher rent to come in for the property. So make sure that you find that number and use that specific number to do all of your calculations for the property's income. Step number 3 is refinance. Now for the refinance, my recommendation would be to go to multiple banks, multiple lenders to figure out what is the most that they're willing to let you pull out of the property. So for the most part, what you'll see with investment properties, and in this case with it being the BRRRR method and it being a multi-family house, it will fall in that category. you would get 75% of the appraised value. So to put this simply, if you buy a house for $100,000, the most that they'll let you take out of the value of the house is $75,000, and they will keep that $25,000 inside the value of the house. So that way, if you do not make payments, there is still some money there for the bank to take. So figure out what the banks in your area will offer. Some may go higher, some may go up to 80-85%, but usually you'll have to build a strong and long-lasting relationship with them before they'll increase that number. So for these calculations, I recommend going off that 75%, but the key here is to talk to 3 to 5 lenders. Another thing to watch out here is figure out what the interest rate that they will charge. So some places it may seem great, hey, 80%, I could pull out more money than the 75%, but if their interest rate is that much higher, like a couple points higher, it may not be worth it, because then that increased interest rate will now pull away from your cash flow and pull away from your rental income. So it's very important to pull those numbers, see what options you have, and then do calculations with a couple of those before you figure out and define which lender you're going to work with. The next step, and definitely the best step of the process, is repeat. So you've gone through the process, you refinanced, you pulled out that money. Now why not go and do it again? Go find another property, repeat that process, and continue to pull in that money. Not only from the house itself and the appraised value and equity that you can pull out, but from cash flow. So now you went from one house where you're pulling in money, take that money, buy another house. Now you have 2 houses that are giving you rental income. Take that money, buy another one. Now you have 3 houses giving you income. And as you can see from that, it's as simple as that with this process. Follow these steps right here. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And you will then get that money. And you'll be able to do this process over and over again until you get to a spot where you feel comfortable. Or you can go and do a lot of different things. You could sell these properties, buy an apartment complex. You can continue this process. You can retire and be financially free because you're getting all this income. So figure out what your motives are in this process, and then use this process to then in turn let you live those dreams of yours. So now that I've shown you the process on how to go through, I'm going to give you the exact example and process I went through. So we're going to use the actual numbers from my property so you could see what I did and how I was able to take a foreclosed property that was in rough condition, get it appraised at a number that allowed me to pull money out, and then get a cash flow that's going to be able to give me money month after month. So to take you through the process for myself, what we ended up doing was we were looking for a house on the buy. So once again, we're back at the beginning. Step 1, buy a property. Now I will tell you, this took me a while. This took me 6-7 months to find a property, because this was one of the first times going through it using the BRRRR method. I have 3 investment properties, and what I've done in the past was the conventional method, but the conventional method can only take you so far. You have to save up your money, and then once you have enough, you buy a property, and then the waiting game starts again. And you can't keep that ball rolling because the next property can't start and you can't buy it until you have the money saved up. This process allows you to put your money in, fix it up, pull your money out, and then put it into another property, which is key because it allows you to keep that ball rolling. But when I found this property, I did my due diligence like I told you all to do, and did check to the local markets to see what do I think the value of this house will be when it's finished. And different things you could use. I would recommend getting a realtor or someone who has access to the MLS to help you out here. Can go for an appraiser also to help you out with this process. But if you don't have access to all of that, check your local listings, see what houses have sold in the last 12 months that are similar to the house you're looking to buy, and figure out what is that price and how does mine compare to figure out a ballpark estimate of what your house will appraise for. So through all of my appraising, taking a look at local markets, I was able to come to the number of $80,000 is what I thought the house was worth. So after all the work and all the repairs that needed to be done, I thought it would be worth $80,000. So the question then came is, what can I offer on this property? The biggest piece of it is that you only want to offer 75% of the value of the house, what you think is the end, minus the expenses. And the expenses include more than just what does the property need done to it. It also includes taxes. It also includes utilities, whether it's snow removal, lawn care. You got to make sure that you assess everything, because if you forget to put a part into that, your equation's going to fall apart and you're going to end up spending more than you thought you actually should in these situations. So for this example, started off with $80,000 is what I thought it was worth. So what I did was take 75% of that number, which then would take us down to $60,000, is at that point my maximum allowable offer. And so you may be asking, why did I take 75% of that number? And that's because that is what the banks will give you. So as I said earlier in the refinance section, the banks will normally give you 75% of the appraised value. So right off the bat, the most that I want to give is what I'm going to be able to take out. So if the house, like the example before, was worth $100,000, the most I want to start for my estimation would be $75,000, and then take expenses out. Because if things don't work and I'm not able to get the renters I want, and I'm not able to even flip the property and sell it if I wanted to, I can guarantee that I can get the 75% of the appraised value from the bank. So that way I know that I could definitely get $60,000 out if it appraises for $80,000. Now that I have that step taken care of, so we're at a number of $60,000, I have to take out what I believe the expenses will be. So the expenses would include the rehab costs and then other fees. So like I said, for rehab costs, that would be what updates are you doing to the property, how much is it going to cost to have those done, and then figure out what timetable are they getting done on, so you know how much you have to pay in taxes, how much you have to pay in utilities, what do you think it's going to be for lawn care, snow removal, depending on where your geographical location is. And there's a lot of those details to take into play as you're figuring out this process. So what I did from a rehab perspective was I worked with some contractors in my area, and then based off my experience was able to figure out where the ballpark will be for the expenses for the property, and overall it came out to about $30,000 of expenses for the rehab portion. Now for fees, looking at the fees of the property, I wanted to include taxes, I wanted to include the utilities I'd have to pay, worry about the lawn care, the snow removal, because I'm up from the north, so I have to worry about snow removal for the winter months. And with all of that taken into account, I set aside another $3,000 for the fees. So taking those two numbers in, that's $33,000 is what I'm expecting it to take from the day I purchase it to the day I go to refinance it. That's how much I think it will cost me. So that comes out to $33,000, with my offer was being at the $60,000, which then in turn takes me down to $27,000 is my maximum allowable offer. So if they ask for $27,000 and 1 penny, it's over where I want to go. And that's something you have to set for yourself. What is that number? And don't budge from it. Because as soon as you start budging from that number, you're then in turn ruining your calculations. So if you say $27,000 is your limit and they ask for 33, don't say, yeah, I'll accept that number, I'll work with the 33, because now you're $6,000 further in the hole than you thought. So stay true to your calculation, stick to the numbers you come up with, and if the deal doesn't work, the deal doesn't work. There's plenty of other properties that you can look at and go and purchase. So to give you some background on my story, $27,000 was the max I could offer. And when I went to the table, I was not going to give them that offer of $27,000. You have to go in lower, try to set the scene for, and feel out how the property is, feel out how the owner feels about the property. If it's a bank, usually they're pretty specific with where they want to go with that number, but you can definitely negotiate, especially if it's been on the market for some time. So I went in and we decided to settle on a price of $20,000. So this in turn was $7,000 less than I wanted. It was a no-brainer for me. I jumped right on it and purchased the property for that $20,000. Now, as I said, with the property and the rehab costs, the rehab came out to about $30,000. So what that included, as you can see in some of the videos that I have posted on the YouTube channel, was the bedrooms had to be redone, had to put new carpeting in, had to paint pretty much every room in the house. The kitchens were pretty much a skeleton, so there was nothing in them. Had to put in new cabinets, new flooring, paint, had to buy new appliances. Bathroom, similar thing, had to put in new flooring there, new toilets, new vanities. So you have to make sure that you account for those expenses as you go. Also on the outside of the property, did put in new siding, had a contractor specifically come out for that task, and while he was out here I had him put on new gutters and fix one of the roofs, just so that way when the bank comes out there is nothing they're going to question and the property is up to the standards that they want before they will allow you to cash out of the property. From a rent perspective, when I originally did my calculations, I knew that the house could rent between, say, $700, $750 up to $900, $950 was probably the range. And after fixing the house up, getting everything done, I was able to start showing it. So since it was a two-family, once the downstairs was done, I started to show the downstairs as we were finishing the upstairs. And I was able to get it so that both floors would be rented out at $900 a month. So $900 per month. And with it being 2 units, it ended up being $1,800 per month coming in. So $1,800 per month were coming in due to this property. And with that $1,800, as you can see, that's almost $20,000 a year that's coming in. Now these are the gross numbers and aren't accounting for the net income, so that's not subtracting the cost of the mortgage that I was going to be taking after pulling out this money, or the taxes, or if I'm covering utilities. In my situation, I'm not covering utilities. However, in yours it may be different. Make sure that you include those in your numbers. So once I got this all set, I set up the refinancing of the property. And when I had the appraiser come out, big thing was to provide them with what you worked on. Let them know the amount of work you put into the property, and let them know what the rental income is, because these are all pieces that they're going to use in their calculation. Now, what they're going to compare it to is other properties in the area, and it's generally anything that's been sold in the last 12 months. So when you're doing your research and looking, make sure the houses you focus on were in the last 12 months of what's been sold. So after the refinance process was done, the appraised value came in at $83,000. So originally what I was looking for was $80,000. Came in just a little bit higher, which is awesome. That's what you should try to hope for in every case, but you want to stay conservative. So I stayed conservative and used $80,000 to base all my numbers off of. It came in a little bit higher, so that's an extra $3,000 that's going into my pocket. So with that $83,000, I was able to pull out 75% of that number, and in turn, with that, I was able to pull out $62,250. So that is how much money is pulled out of the property and now going back into my bank account to be used to purchase another property. Which then in turn allows me to continue this process, start the BRRRR method over again, or use that money to buy some larger real estate purchases that I may not have been able to in the past. So of that $62,250, I spent $50,000. So I bought the house for $20,000, spent $30,000, and then there was the $3,000 for the other expenses, including taxes, and then utilities, because as I didn't have renters, I had to pay those utilities. So this number right here brings you approximately, a little less than, but approximately $10,000 come into my pocket as bonus money. So I only spent, as I said, $50,000. I'm getting $62,000. So that's extra money that I have that I wouldn't have had in the first place. So I get an extra $10,000 there. And then from the rental income, taking out the mortgage and everything that I now have to pay now that I pulled that money out, because now I do have a mortgage on the property, it comes out to about, let's say about $800 per month is coming in as net profit. So I went from $1,800 in rent, then let's just say counting the mortgage, the taxes, any utilities you got to pay, lawn care, maintenance fees, paying for a property manager if you choose to have one. I'm making approximately $800 a month off that. So every year, that's almost an extra $10,000 that I'm making. So through this process, to take it and sum it all up, I bought a house for $20,000, got it appraised for $83,000, and after doing all the math behind it, I was essentially able to gain $10,000 that I didn't have prior to starting this process, and am now going to gain $10,000 per year in rental income on top of that. So in year one, after I make this deal, I'm making $20,000 more than I expected, and every year after that, I'm going to get $10,000 more added. So I just increased my annual income $10,000, and I have an extra $10,000 in the bank to now use towards the purchase of another property. So this just shows that the BRRRR method here is an excellent process to use. And now that I have this money, I could repeat and now go on to the next property and figure out what that next purchase is going to be and try to do the same thing. Set it where you get a margin, where you're increasing your income. So say make an extra $10,000 and then get that rental cash flow to keep going for you. So now instead of making $10,000 extra per year, if I do the same thing with another property, I can make $20,000 extra per year. And then do the same thing the next year, now $30,000. And you get the idea. But even if you just did one per year and we're gaining $10,000 in rental income and did it for 10 years, you're now making $100,000 per year just for owning properties. So it shows you that, yes, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's going to take years after years to get there. But if you're willing to put in the work now and continuously do this year after year, you could be making $100,000 per year without having to touch anything besides just have your properties. So don't have to work a 9 to 5, don't have to worry about what you're doing to make that money. This money is here for you as long as you keep those properties rented. So an excellent process to go through. There are plenty more processes that you can do, which I'll be going into details with in other videos. But I hope you enjoyed this video just to show you what is possible in real estate. Hey guys, so hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear your story, hear what you're doing with real estate. This deal was awesome. It took a lot of work to get it done, but I'm more excited to keep it going, see what the next one has in store. So reach out to me. Be sure to subscribe. I want to continue to give you this content and hope you enjoyed it.